Let me guess. You did not become a CPA because you love managing people. You became a CPA because you're good with numbers. You're good with systems. You're good with logic. I mean, people are messy. You've probably seen that in life. They're emotional. They're unpredictable. You'd rather work with a spreadsheet than navigate team drama. But here's what David Maister wants you to understand. Leadership is not about being charismatic or loving people. Management, it's about creating the conditions where good work happens constantly. Remember when we were doing the videos, we talked about the concept of you don't have to be the best CPA in the firm. You have to have a firm that creates the best CPAs. And you can even do that. And you can even do that even if you hate, and you can do that even if you hate the traditional idea of leadership. Today we're talking about leadership in a CPA firm for people who never wanted to be leaders. And I'm going to show you why leadership is behavior, not personality, and how technical people can lead exceptionally well. Let's go. My name is Ephraim Asher, and I help CPA firms running 1 to 5 million remove themselves as bottlenecks so their firm can take on more clients and smoothly operate without them. We are in midweek 10 of this series based on David Maister's book, Managing the Professional Firm. So a quick recap of last week. The start of the week is we talked about pricing, profitability, and say no to bad clients. We identified the profitability illusion whereby many high revenue clients actually low profit or negative profit when you account for true costs. We broke down the 4 client types: the ideal, profitable and pleasant, the profitable but painful, the unprofitable and easy, and the disaster clients, the unprofitable and painful. And this was you fire them if immediately effective. Just let them go really quickly. And we covered how to calculate true profitability. We talked about its revenue subtracted direct labor costs, rework, and exceptions. We discussed why hourly billing keeps you trapped. It caps your revenue at capacity and punishes efficiency and misaligns incentives. If you are going for a rate of $200 an hour and it took you 10 hours to do something, and suddenly because you become so good at it because you've had reps in, it takes you 5 hours to do the same thing, and you're charging per hour, that hurts you because you're now taking in less revenue, because although you've become more efficient. So which means that it now forces you to do the project out for longer. So changing that hourly trap into now value-based pricing in terms of just having a price for the project, not for the time that you do the project, but for the project. So if you charge the same price, even though you take 10 hours or 5 hours, it's still the same thing. Now, because you become good with the project, you do it in 5 hours, which means that you have unlocked an additional 5 hours of doing something else that could bring more value, more revenue to the firm. We introduced the value pricing mindset, priced based on value, not time, ensuring scope clarity, and letting efficiency become your profit. And we gave you a framework for saying no to bad clients, identify who doesn't fit, reprice or release, communicate clearly, and fill capacity with better clients. The exercise was to run a profitability analysis on your top 10 clients by revenue and identify who is actually driving profit. In this week, we're tackling something that makes most CPAs owners uncomfortable: leadership. Because here is the reality. You can have great systems, talented people, and ideal clients, but if you cannot lead, the firm will never reach its potential. And most CPA owners resist leadership because they think it requires being someone they're not. So today we're breaking down what leadership actually means in our professional firm and how you can lead effectively, even if you're introverted, technical, and would rather avoid the whole thing. So the leadership misconception. Let's start from here. So let's start by talking what leadership is not, because most CPA firm owners think that it means being extroverted and charismatic, giving inspiring speeches like Napoleon, always being the life of the party, always having an answer and never showing doubt. And because they're none of these things, they conclude, well, I'm not a leader. But that is completely wrong, because you see, leadership is not a personality. Leadership is our behavior. You don't have to be charismatic to lead. You don't have to love managing people. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. Leadership in a professional firm is about doing specific things consistently. Things like what, Asher? Things like setting direction, making decisions, holding people accountable, creating clarity, modeling the standards you expect. And none of these require extroversion. None of these require charisma. They just require one key ingredient: discipline. Because the best leaders in professional firms are often quiet, thoughtful, and deliberate. They lead through consistency, not personality. And this is actually great news for CPA firm owners, because the traits that make you a good CPA, discipline, consistency, attention to detail, are the same traits that make you a good leader. You just have to apply them differently. So, management versus leadership, and here is a critical distinction. You see, because it's very easy to confuse the same. But I want to highlight how management and leadership are not the same thing. Let me break it down. Management is about execution, planning the work, assigning tasks, monitoring progress, solving problems, ensuring quality. Management asks the questions: how do we get this work done efficiently and correctly? This is necessary. This is important. But this is not leadership. Leadership is about direction. It's about setting the vision, making strategic decisions, defining what the firm will become, creating the culture, deciding what you will not do. Leadership asks, where are we going and why does it matter? Think of if you're in a car and you're going to a place. Leadership is about the destination. Management is about getting to the destination. Leadership is the end goal. Management is the process of getting to the end goal. Management is about doing things right. Leadership is about doing the right things. And most CPA firm owners are good managers. They know how to execute. They know how to ensure quality. They know how to get work done, but they avoid leadership. They avoid setting direction, making hard choices, and defining what the firm stands for. And that's why the firm feels reactive instead of intentional. You need both. You do need both effectively, but leadership comes first. A well-managed firm without leadership drifts, but a well-led firm with weak management still makes progress. Think of it as if I'm going from New York, or rather, if I'm going from Florida to Washington, so from south up north. If I have a nice process, so if I'm going out with the car, the fastest car in the world, let's use a Bugatti. So I enter a Bugatti, but I'm going on a journey down south, further south. So if I'm in Tampa, I'm going down to Miami. Well, no matter how fast they drive, I'm going in the wrong direction, because Washington is my destination. Now, if I say, okay, fine, I'll go in a slower car. Let's use a Toyota. Even if I go at 100 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, even if it's slow, I'm still going where I need to go. I'm making progress if I compare it to where I'm actually looking to go. So, you have leadership is more important than management, but both are equally important. If you had to choose, leadership matters more, because leadership determines where you're going. Management just determines how efficiently you get there. And if you're going in the wrong direction efficiently, you're still going the wrong way. So, 3 leadership behaviors that actually matter. So, If leadership is behavior, what are the specific behaviors that matter? And Maister identifies three. First, behavior. So certain behavior one, certain direction. This is about answering what are we building. Because most CPA firms operate without a clear direction. They take whatever client comes in. They offer whatever services people ask for. They grow reactively, not intentionally. And the result, the firm feels chaotic. The team feels confused. And the owner feels like they're just trying to keep up. Because a firm without direction is a collection of projects, not a business. And so what does certain direction mean, Asher? Well, certain direction means defining what services you offer and don't offer. Identify who you serve and who you don't serve. Clarifying what success looks like in 3 to 5 years. Deciding what the firm stands for. It does not have to be complicated. It can be simple, like we're building as a firm that specializes in construction accounting for contractors doing 5 to 50 million in revenue. We deliver proactive tax planning and CFO level insights in 5. And in 5 years, we will be the go-to firm in our region for construction business. That there is direction. And once you have it, every decision after that becomes way easier because you're asking, should we take on this client? And your framework is, okay, if we take it, do they fit our direction? Are they part of the construction business? No, because they're a restaurant. Should we offer this service? And you're still asking, does it align with our direction? Should we hire this person? And you're still asking, will they help us move in this direction? Direction eliminates distraction. When you know where you're going, you can say no to everything that doesn't move you there. Second behavior, making decisions. And this is the one most CPA owners avoid because decisions are hard. Decisions require choosing one path and closing off others. Decisions create accountability. So most CPA owners defer decisions. They say, you know what, let's wait and see. We'll decide when we have more information or need to think about it. And meanwhile, the team is stuck waiting. Indecision is a decision and it's usually the worst one. And here's what happens when you don't make good decisions. Your team makes assumptions, which are often wrong. And there's this famous thing about assumption. They say that when you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and me. And when you don't make decisions also, opportunities pass you by, problems compound, and momentum stalls. Leadership requires making decisions, even if you don't have the perfect information. Now, this doesn't mean that you make the worst decision. No. Use the best to make use the best information to make a decision on what you have, right? Make the best decision with the information available. Then move forward and you can adjust later. So most CPAs want certainty before they decide. But certainty doesn't exist, unfortunately. You have to be comfortable making decisions in ambiguity. Now, and here's the key. A good decision made quickly is better than a perfect decision made slowly. Now, quickly doesn't mean that you have to make it that day. Good means that you're thoughtful about it. You are thinking through the process of like, okay, what works, what doesn't work, how can I apply it? It doesn't mean that need to rush. It means that you need to think it through. But thinking it through doesn't mean that you need to be on that thing for weeks and weeks on end without actually coming up with something. Speed creates momentum, and momentum creates progress. The third behavior is holding people accountable. This is the behavior that most CPAs struggle with, because holding people accountable, it feels confrontational, it feels uncomfortable, so they avoid it. They let mistakes slide. They tolerate underperformance and make excuses for people. And the result is standards erode. Good people get frustrated and the firm quality suffers. The truth about accountability is not about being harsh. It's about being clear. And here's what accountability looks like. You set clear expectations. Here's what good likes. Here is the deadline. Here is what happens if it's not met. You check in at milestones. We said you'd have this done by Friday. Where are we? Address gaps immediately. This didn't meet the standard we discussed. Let's talk about what happened and how to fix it. Notice, none of this is harsh. Like, I got you. It's just clear. And clarity is kindness. The kindest thing you can do for someone is to be clear about expectations and hold them accountable. Ambiguity and avoidance are cruel. When you don't hold people accountable, you're not being nice. You're not being nice. You're just being unclear. And unclear expectations create confusion, frustration, and resentment. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Leadership for introverts. Well, not a lot of CPA firm owners are introverts. They recharge alone, not in groups. They prefer thinking to talking. They rather send an email than have a meeting. And they think that disqualifies them from leadership. But the opposite is true, because introverts make better leaders in professional firms because they listen more, think more, and act more deliberately. Now, this is not to throw shade on the extrovert CPA owners, but here's why introverts prevail in this aspect, because introverts, they listen better. Extroverts talk to think. Introverts think to talk. This means that introverts tend to listen more and interrupt less. And in a professional firm, listening is critical. Your team has insights. Your clients have needs. Your managers have feedback. If you're always talking, you miss it. The best leaders ask more questions than they answer. And introverts do this naturally. Second advantage that introverts have is they decide more thoughtfully, because introverts process internally before speaking. This can feel slow to others, but it means that their decisions are usually better thought through. In professional firms, rushed decisions are expensive. Thoughtful decisions compound. But notice, being thoughtful doesn't mean that I have to spend years thinking about whether I should use one accounting software over the other. Being thoughtful means that I'm thinking through the process and I'm acting as fast as possible. Right? We talked earlier. We mentioned that good decisions done quickly are better than perfect decisions done slowly. But as I said, good quickly, that doesn't mean that you need to rush through it. It means that you need to be thoughtful throughout the whole thing. You don't need to be the fastest decision maker. You need to be the most thoughtful decision maker. Third advantage is introverts lead through consistency. They don't rely on charisma or energy to lead. They lead through consistency. They do what they say. They show up the same way every day. They model the behavior they expect. And consistency is more powerful than charisma. And Maister says that charisma inspires the moment. Consistency builds trust over time. And trust is what makes professional firms work. So, the leadership behavior that you can start today. So how do you turn this concept into practical? You don't have to transform your personality, or you don't have to transform your personality, or you just have to practice specific behaviors. Here are 5 leadership behaviors that you can start this week. First, communicate the why. Every time you assign a task, explain why it matters. Not just what to do, but why it's important. For example, instead of prepare this return by Friday, try, look, Bob, because everyone likes Bob. This client is refinancing their business next month. They need clean financials to present to the bank. So this return is part of that package. Can you have it done by Friday? Now this person understands context. They know what's at stake, and they can think critically about the work. When people understand the why, they deliver better work. The second behavior. One strategic decision per week. Leadership is built through decisions. Commit to making one strategic decision per week. I.e. is, we will no longer offer this service to this industry, or we will no longer offer this service, or we will focus on this industry, or we will raise our minimum engagement to 10,000, 20,000, 5,000. We will hire for this role. One decision per week. In a year, you'll have made 52 strategic decisions, and your firm will look completely different. Leadership is the accumulation of small, consistent decisions. The third behavior. Hold one accountability conversation per week. Pick one person or one situation where expectations were not met, and have a conversation. Not accusatory, but just clear. Like, we agreed this will be done by Tuesday. It wasn't. What happened, and how do you prevent it next time? It feels uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the clearer your standards become. The teams that perform best are teams with the clearest accountability. Fourth is block time for leadership work. And we talked about this in some other videos. Remember back in week 5 where we talked about the ownership work? Leadership is a subset of that. You have to protect time for it. You have to block 2 to 3 hours per week for strategic thinking, decision making, planning, vision work. No client work, no email, no interruptions. If you don't schedule leadership time, it won't happen because it's never urgent, only important. There's no deadline or specific date that you have to get this done by. It's all dependent on you and when you're gonna do it. And so we talked about how it may feel unprofitable right now, but the rewards compound over time. It's like investing $100 a day in the market or something. And you may not see it right now because it's small, but the action is years down the line. And when you're talking about how you want your farm to grow, time is your best friend. When you put in the leadership work, because then it now reflects on the farm 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now. 5. Model the behavior you expect, and this is the most powerful leadership tool. You don't have to tell people what to do, you just have to show them. Your actions speak way louder than your words. If you want your team to respect the deadlines, you respect deadlines. If you want your team to communicate proactively, you communicate proactively. If you want the team to take ownership of mistakes, also you take ownership of mistakes. There's a song that we used to sing when we're younger, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader. So we're always following the leader. Culture is not what you say, it's what you tolerate and what you model. Your team is watching what you do, not what you say. So do what you want them to do. Now, leadership through systems. And here's something that most people don't realize is you can actually lead through systems and not personality. And this is perfect for technical people who don't want to inspire or motivate, because you don't have to. You can build systems that create the outcome that you want. The best leaders build environments where the right behaviors happen naturally, not because people are motivated, but because the systems makes it easier. Now, and here's what this looks like. The first system is standardized processes. When you standardize processes, people know what to do without asking you. They don't need motivation, they need clarity. Leadership through design. Second, clear decision frameworks. When you create frameworks for decisions, people can make decisions without you. For example, if a client asks for something outside our scope, here is the decision tree within our expertise. So first you ask, Okay, does it align with our services? Second, is it profitable? And is it within our expertise? And then if yes to all three, then you can say yes. Otherwise, escalate it to me. And now your employees, your people can lead themselves. Systems scale. Your personal involvement does not scale. The third system is transparent metrics. When you make metrics visible, people self-correct. They don't need you to tell them that they're behind. They can see it. They know it. They can feel it. Example is the realization rates by client. They're visible to the team, or the utilization rates are visible to everyone, or the client satisfaction score tracked and shared. Transparency creates accountability without confrontation. Now, leadership mistakes to avoid. Now, let's talk about what not to do. And Maister identifies 3 common leadership mistakes mostly made in life and also in professional firms. Mistake number 1. I mean, we've all been here at some point in our lives, right? Trying to be liked, and this is the biggest one. You want your team to like you, so you avoid hard convos, or you don't hold people accountable. You let things slide. You don't want to be like the boss, you just in the short term people do like you, but in the long term you lose respect, though, because leadership is not a popularity contest. Respect matters than likability. And respect comes from clarity, consistency, and accountability, not from being nice. Say the thing that need to be said. You're also helping them in the long run into holding them accountable. And you're also helping your farm as well. Okay? Second mistake in leadership is avoiding conflicts. And most CPA owners, they hate conflict. They avoid it. They let problems fester. They hope issues resolve themselves, but they don't really. Every avoided conflict becomes a bigger conflict later, like a big pot of this conflict brewing, and when it spills, it comes in hard, really hard. The kindest thing you can do is to address issues early, directly, and respectfully. Not later, not indirectly, but now. Early, directly, and respectfully. The third mistake is doing instead of leading. And this is the trap we've talked about throughout in the series. When something needs to be done, you do it yourself instead of leading others to do it. You prepare the return instead of developing someone who can. You handle the client instead of empowering your team. You solve the problem instead of building the system. And every time you do the work instead of leading, you are choosing short-term efficiency over long-term capacity. And that's how you stay trapped. That's how you can't go without having to trust your team, because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if the team can actually handle this without me. But of course, you've trained them to be that way. So this is another leadership mistake. So let's talk about what then, if you do leadership right and avoid these mistakes, what does it create? And what do you actually get when you lead effectively? 1, clarity. This is the most beautiful of them all. When you lead, your team knows where is the firm going, what is expected of them, what decisions they can make, what good looks like. Clarity eliminates confusion, reduces stress, and increases performance. Now, outcome 2, accountability. When you lead, standards are clear and enforced. People know what happens if expectations are not met, and all that creates a culture of ownership. Trust. When you lead consistently, your team trusts you. They know you'll make decisions. They know that you'll support them. They know that you'll hold everyone, including yourself, accountable. And that's what trust. And that trust is what makes professional firms work, because trust is the currency of professional firms. Without it, nothing else works. Fourth outcome is freedom. If doing this right, and this is the big one, because when you lead, the firm doesn't need you to function because you've set the direction, you've built the systems, and you've developed the people. And the firm runs on leadership, not on you personally. That there's freedom. The best leaders make themselves progressively less essential to day-to-day operations. And that is the goal. So, let's talk about what we've covered. The leadership misconception. I said that leadership is not personality, it's behavior. You don't have to be charismatic, extroverted, or love managing people. You just have to do specific things consistently. I'm talking about the difference between management and leadership. And management is about execution, doing things right. Leadership is about direction, doing the right things. And you need both. But leadership comes first. The three behaviors of leadership that matter is: first, setting direction. Define what you're building and where you're going. Second is making decisions. Choose a path, even if without the perfect information, and hold people accountable. Set clear expectations and address the gaps. Now, leadership for introverts. Introverts make the best leaders, better leaders, because they listen better, decide more thoughtfully, and lead through consistency instead of charisma. The 5 leadership behaviors to start today are: communicate the why behind the work. Make one strategic decision per week. Hold one accountable conversation per week. Block time for leadership work, 2 to 3 hours weekly. And model the behavior that you expect. Then we also talked about the leadership through systems, whereby you can lead through design, standardized processes, clear decision frameworks, and transparent metrics. Systems scale, personal involvement does not. Leadership mistakes to avoid: trying to be liked, but respect actually matters more. Avoiding conflict, it gets bigger later, and doing instead of leading. Choosing short term over long term. What leadership creates is, when you apply this well, is clarity. The team knows what's expected. Accountability, standards are enforced. Trust, consistency builds confidence. Freedom, the firm works without you. And the core principle here is, leadership is the accumulation of consistent behaviors. You don't have to transform your personality, you just have to practice the right behaviors. So next week, week 11, we're bringing everything together. We're talking about what a successful CPA firm actually looks like, because what we've discovered is, over the last 10 weeks, is most CPA firm owners are optimizing for the wrong definition of success. They think that success is revenue or number of clients or how busy they are. But Maister says that all of those are the wrong metrics. So next week we're breaking down how to define success beyond revenue. 3 dimensions of a successful firm. What you should actually measure, and how to know if you're building the right thing. And we'll tie together everything from this series into a clear framework for what you're actually building. And this is the capstone. So your exercise for this week is: pick one leadership behavior from today's list and practice it every day. So a few options are: communicate the why on every assignment, make one strategic decision, hold one accountability conversation, block leadership time, model one specific behavior. Just one behavior every day for 7 days. And that's how leadership becomes natural. Alright? Thanks for watching. Now, go and lead.